Everyone, so just wanted to give an overview of my DR650 Scrambler that you can see here. So I've got a Facebook group, Suzuki DR650 Scrambler Tracker Cafe Racer Builds group, and I just wanted to give an overview of my bike and the build, rather than just sending through pictures and bits and pieces here and there. So I'll go through the whole bike, I'll go through the front all the way to the back, talk about all the bits and the reasons I changed, and how I've ended up with the style that I've got now. One of the first things to cover off on is the style and how it ended up here. When I first got the bike, it was pretty much brand new. It was all stock. I bought it to make it into a scrambler. I enjoyed riding it too much, and I ended up sort of making it into a bit of an adventure bike. Put the bigger tank on it and that sort of stuff. Did some other bits of suspension. And rode around for a while like that. Eventually the bug to customise it kept sort of eating at me. I bought some motard wheels, and I used to have it in a motard sort of format as well. I'd switch between the two, between motard and adventure, depending on what riding I was doing. That was a very safe way of customising, and I still wanted to go whole hog. So I ended up taking two Rogue motorcycles in Perth, so they're a custom builder, probably the best one in Perth, and he did some of the initial work for me, fitted the tank, did the exhaust, bits and pieces like that. That was the first part, and then eventually I customised it some more to end up where it is now. So the first thing to go over is the bike is lowered. So why have I lowered it? I'm about 5'8". When I first got the bike, I originally had it in the standard height. I didn't mind riding it at standard height. I used to go off-road with it standard height. I didn't mind it. The reason I sort of tried the lowering stance is I got sick of, when you're getting on and off the bike and living it day to day, getting on and off all the time and kicking your leg over it. So I lowered it, tried it. Really enjoyed it in lowered style, found it very easier to live with day to day. It doesn't sacrifice too much clearance wise. Went back, switched it back to standard height for a while, tried that again, didn't mind it. But eventually I just went back to lowered and kept it lowered. Starting at the front end of the bike, here you've got a 19-inch front wheel. This originally was a motard set, and I had the front relaced to 19-inch. And it has a Shinko ADV style tyre on it, can't remember the name of it. I still have the original wheels that I can swap back to for dirt. They're running a Pirelli and a Dunlop combination. Suspension wise, I've got straight rate springs and DDC drop-in valves in there. Warp 9 front brace, some shorter fork boots to handle the lowered stance. The aluminium fender mounted to the brace. It has quite a big gap there because it can still fit the 29-inch standard front wheel underneath it without an issue. That was part of the original build, is to make sure that it was fitted to make sure that fit on there. Moving up, I've got a cheap LED headlight. I'm still running the original headlight mounts, rubber mounted fork mounts, reason for vibration. So I fitted up some brackets to that. Just a cheap eBay headlight fairing. Works okay. Had to make custom mounts to fit that as well because it wouldn't fit the headlight, or couldn't get it to fit in a decent way. Moving up to the handlebars, so I've got Barkbuster taper bar mounts, carbon fibre hand guards, some fold down mirrors. The handlebars are some Pro Taper mids. Ballard's risers, Pro Taper grips. The reason why I went with the Pro Taper mids is very, very, very similar to stock handlebar height, which I quite like. I just didn't want the ugly steel stock bars. So moving on to the engine. So here I've got a B&B bash guard. It has been modified. I've cut the sides off it. I've drilled some holes in it. They are purely for looks that I've done those mods. Yep, I'm a bit vain, but then again, I have a customised scrambler, so I did look at purchasing other skid plates instead of butchering that one, but I'm not a millionaire either, so I just butchered the one I have. Lowered foot peg mounts, that was mainly just, I didn't mind the standard height, that was mainly just to get rid of the rubber mounting. The basic engine covers, they're B&B as well. The header pipe is standard, it's just been polished. There is a TM40 pumper carb on there, that was from Pro Cycle. You'll see the wiring up under here, and how it's covered. The reason is for that is because this tank I had on before this one used to come lower, had a higher tunnel. Therefore the tank would sit lower and horizontal, and because of that it used to hide these wires a bit better. The reason why there's so many wires is because when you pull off the headlight, standard wires, you've got that big bird's nest of wires up there. What I did is I ran twin headlights for a while when I had it in adventure style. All that wiring had to go somewhere, so what I did is I pulled it all apart and I sort of ran it all back. So the connections are all further down the chain and connected further back down the harness. And what that did is I got rid of the big bird's nest. You can still see there's some still wires and stuff sort of bundled up behind there, but there's just that big clump that was originally up behind the headlight is now gone, and it's all down the harness. It is a bit ugly that you can see all these wires dangling around. To be honest, I just can't be bothered doing anything with them because I've spent so much time mucking around with wires already. You can see here there's just a basic cover over the brake, 17-inch wheel at the back with Shinko tyre on there as well. Rear suspension is a standard rear shock but rebuilt with Racetech valves and spring, so it's very much stiffer, has some more adjustment in it. I've put that little stamp on there so I can sort of remember the clicker numbers. The exhaust, so this is a custom exhaust. This one was built by Rogue Motorcycles, so he fitted this one. It's got that pipe off the shelf and then he's welded up the mid-pipe piece, which is all one piece, and it comes in, mounts to the standard header. Basic aluminium plate there bolted on. Standard airbox, it's been cut open. Reason for that is I didn't want a pod filter. I used to ride, do a bit of off-road. It gets dusty. I didn't want to have any jetting issues or anything, so keeping the standard box was part of the build design, and that's why it's just got covers rather than trying to open all that area up. Let's move around to the left side. The pumper carb's in clearer view now. You can see there's a little fuel filter on there. Standard pegs, the shortened side stand, ignore the blue tape on the floor. Another aluminium plate on this side. You can see the wiring here, which is just all standard wiring. That's the way it looks. It's on my to-do list to maybe tidy that up. So standard down here, run standard gearing when I'm riding on the road. I do have a smaller front sprocket, which I swap sometimes. Saddlebag is a Krieger saddlebag. I've just got a custom-made basic bracket. You can see it's sort of mounted there. It hooks onto the bracket behind it. So I always get a lot of questions about the tank. Everyone always wants to know about the tank. This is a 12-litre tank. I think it's off the bike is over here. They're called Sol Invictus. Probably called something else around the world. Cheap eBay knee pads, which are alright, but they're not very sticky. Stuff on them isn't that good. Suzuki decals, so I've got a bunch of them made up locally, and then I stick them on and clear coat. All the paintwork's done by myself. Painted a few tanks now. Never gets any easier, it's always a pain in the ass. This one was no exception. To be honest, I actually regret not just keeping the standard tank. I actually quite like the shape of the standard tank, and you can make them look really good. The tank I had on before this was a 79, like a 1970s CB 750 tank, I think, which was quite large. I think it was about 17 litres or something. It was very big. Used to be really long and used to come back quite far, so you were sitting further back. Used to be wider, so your legs were further apart as well. So I didn't like those two things about it. The issue was it was an old tank and it actually started leaking in the seams. So it was either fix it or get a new one. So I got a new one. To fit these tanks, I also had to weld up a place to the petcock. So I had to cut a new plate, drill a hole, weld it on this side, weld up the old hole. Did all that myself. It is made to fit the standard Suzuki petcock. This is the one I put on initially, just so it has more basic on-off rather than the vacuum-operated one. The tank matches up to this seat, which is just a basic off-the-shelf custom sort of style seat. It's mounted on underneath. I did have a brown one when I originally built it, had the first sort of custom work done. I still got the brown seat, I can chuck that on if I need. It's a bit thicker, comes up a bit higher, and has a bit more of a kick at the back. It looks alright, it's a bit thicker, probably a bit more comfier, but I actually like the lower profile, thinner look of the black a bit more. Moving around to the back end, I have on the frames been hooped at the back, and then there's, if you can hardly see it, there's this stainless steel mini sort of rack built into the frame, so that was there on purpose because in the custom work I knew I'd junked the original tool holder, the little plastic tool holder, so I always wanted to run a tool bag on the back, tool roll, and so this is a more recent edition, upgraded to a Velamachi one, had a cheap one on there. Aluminium fender at the back as well, with this tail light. This was actually, I can't remember the brand, it was something my wife bought for me before we got married as a present. It comes from America, I think it was Crow or something like that. I had it on my Speed Triple before this bike. LED indicators, and they're all just mounted up on this. The number plate holder is from Ella Speed. I've welded on another bracket for the indicators, and then I've fabbed up this custom bracket up here which bolts onto the fender. So that's an overview of my DR650 Scrambler. There's probably some things that I missed. Braided brake lines front and back, K&N air filter in the airbox as well. So overall the performance is pretty good. The exhaust is really loud. I've got some other videos up about comparing some of those. It goes really well. Every time I ride this thing I'm like, I just love it.